Welcome to Lair of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, 10 of Jimi Hendrix's heaviest songs. Jimi Hendrix is one of my favorite guitar players, and although I would not consider him a heavy metal guitar player, his influence on heavy guitar, heavy metal, and guitar playing in general is undeniable. He is, in my opinion, one of the most influential guitar players of all time. He was the first one to use a heavy, distorted guitar sound. The crazy stuff he did with the whammy bar on his guitar, his technique was way above everybody else. His songwriting, the way he used the guitars in the recording, he just took the guitar to a whole new world. So I've picked what I believe are 10 of his heaviest songs. Okay, I put them in order. So here we go with number 10 from his first album, Are You Experienced? Maybe his most popular song, the song Purple Haze. Starts off with that sort of off-kilter guitar part, and the bass is even playing like a different note, so it sounds really like just kind of strange. And then it kicks into the that heavy line, and then when the verses kick in, he's just rocking out so hard. And I love at the end of the song, he's soloing out when he's doing the whole Purple Haze, and he's doing this crazy solo at the end that has like a harmonized guitar, another register octave higher, that gives it like this really crazy psychedelic feeling. At that time, nobody was doing anything like that. That was like one of the heaviest things out there at that time. The way he was using the guitar, the effects on the guitar, just incredible. Number 9, from Axis Bold as Love, the song If 6 Was 9. I love the way this starts with that heavy guitar thing, ba-da, and then the drums, ba-da. And as I was listening to it today, it occurred to me for the first time, it reminds me of War Pigs. I wonder if Sabbath was influenced by this song for War Pigs, because it's the same type of thing, ba-da, and instead of the drums going, he's just doing half of that, there's a little ba-da. And then when it kicks in, it got my whole world. He's playing these big open chords. And Mitch Mitchell, the drummer, who's just a great drummer, almost jazzy but still heavy, he's doing all these huge drum fills. And there's a spot coming out of the guitar solo towards the end of the song where he does this big, long, kind of circular drum fill that is just absolutely crazy while Hendrix is doing a ba-da. And then when his song goes out, it's just all this crazy stuff is going on. There's like this chirping sound that sounds like birds or seagulls, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I think that it's him pressing his strings down on his pickups and making this very high-pitched squealing-like noise. It's just, Hendrix was so innovative with what he did with the guitar. It's just incredible. Okay, now I didn't mention this earlier, that when Hendrix was alive, he released 4 albums. After he died, right before he died, he was in the process of recording a double album that he was basically finished with. But then he passed away, and after he died, they split that album into 2 records, Cry of Love and Rainbow Bridge. And then after that, they released a bunch of other posthumous albums that were basically just scraps and bits and bobs from when stuff that he was experimenting with in the studio. And it varies very greatly in quality. So here's something from the first song that I've picked from one of the posthumous albums. This is Rainbow Bridge, which was, again, the second album after he passed away, a collection of stuff that he had recorded. And it's mostly studio stuff, but there's a live cut on here of a blues classic, Hear My Train A-Comin'. I believe it's recorded live at the Fillmore. And it reminds me a lot of, I love when Hendrix does these sort of one-chord songs that he can just stretch out on the guitar. It reminds me a little bit of Voodoo Child or Machine Gun. And it starts off, Jimmy's just playing kind of a clean guitar, And then it kicks in, he just turns the guitar up and boom, these big chords. And at the end of the song, he doubles his vocal. Hear my train come in. He's doubling it with the guitar. And as the song goes out, he just takes this incredible guitar solo at the end with all these big bends and just super melodic and super tasteful and just heavy too, man. Hendrix live was even heavier than he was in the studio. It just sounds like his amp is ready to explode. Incredible. Okay, we are back to the first album. Are you experienced for my number 7 pick, which is Foxy Lady? This is great the way it starts with the feedback, that sound at the beginning. That's what it is. It's him turning his guitar on, and at the end, it sounds like the amp's going to explode, and then boom, 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 ba, boom, boom, ba. It's just great. So heavy, so catchy. Foxy Lady. At that time, nobody was getting a guitar sound like that. I could just imagine the engineers in the studio, Hendrix with his Marshall amps just ready to explode, and these guys like, what is going on here? But he captures it just fantastically on tape and just so great. And that main riff in that song is so heavy. That's why I picked that one. All right, here we are with one of the other posthumous albums came out after he died. This one's called War Heroes. And this is pretty spotty. This has got a lot of stuff that Hendrix never intended to be released. But there's what sounds like a studio jam on here, an instrumental called Midnight, which is another kind of one-chord song. No vocals, it's an instrumental, but it cycles through these chord changes, and it's just got this super heavy guitar sound, and his soloing in it, it's just these big huge bends. There's one spot where he does this bend and you think he can't go anymore, and he just pushes it a little bit higher, and it's just like you're on the edge of your seat the whole time. It is a fantastic instrumental. If you've never heard it, I don't think this is in print anymore, but they've repackaged these albums so many times under different titles. You can probably find it somewhere. But it's just super cool instrumental with really interesting chord progression and just fantastic soloing from Jimmy. And I'm sure he just did it live in the studio. It doesn't sound like something that was. There's only like one guitar on it. It doesn't sound like something that was super planned out. It was just a studio jam. But Hendrix was just amazing. The great thing about, so many great things about Jimi Hendrix, but one thing that I just find absolutely amazing is that I'll hear him do various songs live, different versions, or I'll hear a song like that, and I'll hear him do something that I've never heard him do before. And it's just like, where does he come up with this stuff? His mind was just on a whole nother level. His playing was just totally like he was channeling some sort of spirit, and it's just absolutely fantastic. His lead guitar sound is my favorite lead guitar sound ever. The sustain and everything is just great. Okay, we are back to Axis Bold as Love for my number 5 pick, which is Spanish Castle Magic. This reminds me a little bit of Foxy Lady. It's got a groove like that. And what's really cool is there's a piano, I think, in it, playing these low notes. It hits this note that just sort of rings out and has this sort of stop-start, and the verses, da-da-da-da, it's very far away, ba-da-da-ba. How to get there, look out, it goes back into that really heavy groove. Mitch Mitchell is just all over it. The bass is doubling the riff. It makes it just sound so heavy, just awesome. All right, another posthumous album. This was part 1 of, this came out right after he died, and this was kind of collected the best songs from that album that he was working on right before he passed. And there's a song on here called In From the Storm, and that's my number 4 pick. It's another just heavy riffer. It starts off with this big drum fill. And the lyrics are really cool. I just came back today, just came back from the storm. And at the end of the song, it has kind of like a double time thing. Ba-da-da-da-da-ba, da-da-da-ba, ba-ga, ba-ga, and it ends on sort of this dissonant chord. There's a live version of this. He did this a couple times live. Again, he was working on these songs right before he passed away. So some of the concerts he did before, right before he died, he played some of these songs that were never on his original 4 studio albums. And In From the Storm, I believe it's on the Isle of Wight. It is just super heavy, man. The guitar and that main riff in it, da 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 da, it's just awesome. Really explodes live. All right, here's another one that everybody remembers Jimi Hendrix for. I have it here on, this is a soundtrack to the Jimi Hendrix movie. I also have the Woodstock cassette CD. So for number 3, I'm picking the Star Spangled Banner. Yes, it is, his performance of that is so legendary that anybody else who plays the Star Spangled Banner on guitar, or it's at a football game or a baseball game or something, whatever, it is just, everybody thinks of the Jimi Hendrix version. And what's crazy is that Woodstock, Hendrix was supposed to go on, I think it was like Sunday night or Saturday night, and he was pushed way late till the next morning. It's either Sunday morning or Monday morning. And by that point, most of the people had left. But supposedly he just did this as an impromptu thing, just started playing the Star Spangled Banner. And it is just incredible. The spot with the, and the rockets red glare, woo, his dive bar and the exploding. I mean, it sounds like bombs are going off. It sounds like rockets. It's so incredible, the sounds he was able to get from his guitar. And that spot, after all that noise, and he stops. Bom, 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 ba, da, da, da. Every time I hear that, it sends a shiver up my spine. So I had to put that in there. It is just some of the greatest guitar feedback ever recorded. All right, number 2, from Electric Ladyland, Voodoo Child, Slight Return. This, in my opinion, has got to have one of the heaviest studio recorded guitar sounds ever. It is just so intense, and it starts off with that wah guitar thing, and then right at the end of that phrase, it just absolutely explodes. The guitar just, it is so powerful. It just sounds like his amp is right at the destruction point. And his guitar solo in this is it's just absolutely incredible. It is just amazing. There's just no words to put it. The fade out guitar solo in this. He has a ton of live versions of this, and it always sounds amazing live. But I went with the studio version because, like I said, I think it might be one of the heaviest guitar sounds committed to tape. Just absolutely incredible. Other people have covered it, but for me, the Hendrix version is the definitive version of that song. And just the lyrics too have this, well, I stand up next to a mountain, and he's like in a blues, this is a lot of blues guys, as he doubles his vocal line. I'll meet you no more in this world, babe. Meet you on the next one, but don't be late. It's just great, man. I stand up next to a mountain and I chop it down with the edge of my hand. What a great line. I love it. Okay, number 1, Jimi Hendrix's most heaviest song, and probably one of my favorite guitar performances of all time. From the Band of Gypsys album. This came out when he was alive, but it's a live record. He did this to fulfill a contract obligation. He had 2 new members in the band, Billy Cox and gosh, I can't believe I don't remember the drummer's name. I gotta look because it's terrible that I don't remember the drummer's name. Buddy Miles, of course, right. Billy Cox on bass, Buddy Miles on drums, and the song Machine Gun. Again, this is one of my all-time favorite guitar performances ever. This song is super intense. It's a war theme song about soldiers, Vietnam. he makes his guitar sound like a machine gun at times. And there's this constant thing on just the bass and the drums just keep this sort of ostinato underneath them. And this song has one of my favorite guitar notes of all time. When the guitar solo starts, he hits this bend, and it sustains like a screaming missile or something. It's got to be the longest sustained guitar note I've ever heard. He just holds this note, and it is unbelievable. It sends a shiver up my spine. It is so emotional, so incredible, so intense. It's such a journey. It's a long song. It's only one chord, but Jimi makes it so interesting, so incredible. He has a bunch of different versions of this. In my opinion, different live versions of Machine Gun. This is the definitive version. Absolutely mind-blowing. If you've never heard it, please listen to it. It's some of the greatest guitar playing ever. I remember once seeing a transcription of it in a magazine, and this was back in the late 80s when these guitar magazines would transcribe Yngwie Malmsteen and all this super fast technical stuff. And the guy that transcribed it said, I've transcribed hundreds and hundreds of songs, and this was the hardest song I ever had to transcribe because of the way he bends and plays with the notes and his phrasing and everything. It's just absolutely incredible. There is not one note on here that doesn't have a ton of emotion behind it. Just absolutely beautiful. Jimi Hendrix at his best. The last thing that he would release when he was alive, Machine Gun. There's a lot of other great versions that I especially love the Isle of Wight version of this. His guitar is really up front in the mix, and it's got all these whammy bar things in it. And in the Isle of Wight version, you can hear there's crosstalk from airplanes coming through his amplifier. So he's playing, and you hear this like walkie-talkies coming through, and it just adds to the craziness, to the intensity of the songs. It's just amazing. All right, Jimi Hendrix, 10 of his heaviest songs. I love Jimi Hendrix, the greatest guitar player ever. So give those a listen if you've never heard any of those songs. Let me know what you think in the comments that you think are some of his heaviest songs. In the meantime, hit subscribe and like. And until we see you again, remember to stay heavy, stay metal.